The rain-slicked alley in Seattle's Capitol Hill reeked of wet asphalt and regret when Finn Harlow first tasted blood on his tongue. Not his own, but the metallic tang of a stranger's fury exploding across his jaw in a single, shattering punch. "You're nothing but a ghost in my empire, boy," the man snarled, his voice a gravelly echo of old-world venom wrapped in a tailored suit that screamed old money and older sins, his emerald eyes glinting like serpent scales under the flickering neon of a dive bar sign. Finn crumpled against the brick wall, the world tilting into a kaleidoscope of pain and pulse-racing defiance, realizing in that split-second haze that the Serpent King had just marked him as prey, and the hunt had only just begun. Finn had always known he was different, the kind of different that whispered through the veins of a family fractured by secrets and small-town judgments back in Ridge Valley, Washington. At 25, with his lean frame honed from restless nights running trails through the evergreens, he carried the weight of being the quiet one, the dreamer who sketched forbidden desires in hidden journals while the world outside preached normalcy. His hazel eyes, flecked with gold like autumn leaves caught in stormlight, hid a storm of their own, a pull toward the shadows, toward men who moved like predators in the night. But nothing had prepared him for Wyatt Kane. Wyatt wasn't just a man. He was a force, the unchallenged alpha of the Serpent's coil, a clandestine network woven into the underbelly of Seattle's tech boom and underground art scene. They called him the Serpent King for the tattoo coiling up his forearm, a sinuous black serpent devouring its own tail, symbolizing the endless cycle of power and betrayal that defined their world. At 32, Wyatt embodied the Pacific Northwest's rugged allure. Broad shoulders straining against flannel shirts rolled to his elbows, ink-black hair tousled by the relentless drizzle, and a jawline sharp enough to cut glass, shadowed by the perpetual 5 o'clock scruff that made Finn's stomach twist with equal parts terror and thirst. His skin was olive-toned, kissed by some forgotten Mediterranean ancestor, and his voice, low, commanding, laced with the faint drawl of a Texas youth he'd buried long ago, could unravel a man with a single syllable. Finn's entanglement started innocently enough, or so he told himself in the fevered aftermath. It was a humid August evening, the kind where Seattle's fog clung like a lover's breath, and Finn had wandered into the Whispering Viper, a speakeasy hidden behind a nondescript coffee shop in Belltown. He'd gone there chasing rumors, whispers from his barista job at a queer-friendly cafe in Capitol Hill about a place where omegas like him, submissive souls drawn to the alpha's fire, could find sanctuary without the world's prying eyes. In their circle, it wasn't biology that dictated omega status. It was the soul's quiet surrender, the magnetic yield to a dominant force that promised both ecstasy and ruin. The bar was a velvet-draped haze of low lights and jazz riffs from a lone saxophone player in the corner, the air thick with the scent of aged whiskey and unspoken promises. Finn nursed a gin and tonic at the scarred oak counter, his fingers tracing the condensation on the glass, when Wyatt slid onto the stool beside him like a shadow detaching from the wall. "You look like you're running from something," Wyatt said, his voice cutting through the murmur like a blade through silk. No hello, no pretense. Just those piercing green eyes locking onto Finn's, stripping away the layers until Finn felt exposed, raw, as if Wyatt could see the tattoo hidden beneath his shirt. A delicate Ouroboros on his collarbone, inked in a moment of rebellion during his senior year of college. "I'm not running," Finn replied, his voice steadier than he felt, though his heart hammered like a trapped bird. "Just exploring." It was a lie, thin as the fog outside, but Wyatt's lips curved into a smile that was equal parts predator and poet, revealing teeth white against the dim light. "Exploring gets you lost in places like this." Finn Harlow. The way Wyatt said his name, full, deliberate, like he owned it, sent a shiver down Finn's spine. How did he know? Finn's mind raced. The job application he'd half-assed for a gallery internship, the online profile he deleted after one too many ghostings? But Wyatt leaned closer, his cologne a subtle mix of cedar and smoke, and murmured, "I've been watching you sketch those serpents in your notebook at the cafe. You draw like you ache." That night blurred into a montage of stolen touches and whispered confessions. Wyatt led him through the bar's back door into a hidden lounge where the Coil's inner circle gathered. Men like Elias Thorne, a silver-haired artist with a laugh like thunder, and Cole Rayner, a tech whiz whose fingers danced over laptops like they were lovers. They were alphas, all of them, bound by a code of loyalty forged in the fires of past betrayals. Coming out in the AIDS-ravaged 80s, fighting for marriage equality in boardrooms and back alleys. And Finn? He was the Omega they sensed immediately, the one whose presence softened the edges of their guarded world, drawing them in with his quiet intensity and the way his laughter lit up like bioluminescent waves on a midnight beach. By dawn, Finn was in Wyatt's loft overlooking Elliott Bay, the city lights smearing into gold across the water like spilled secrets. They didn't sleep. Wyatt's hands mapped Finn's body with the reverence of a cartographer charting forbidden lands, fingers tracing the curve of his hip, thumb brushing the sensitive hollow of his throat, eliciting gasps that echoed off the exposed brick walls. "You're mine now," Wyatt growled against Finn's skin, his breath hot and ragged, as he pinned Finn to the rumpled sheets. It wasn't possession. It was a vow, sealed in the salt of sweat and the rhythm of bodies colliding like storm-tossed waves. Finn arched into it, surrendering to the Alpha's command, his own desires uncoiling like the serpent ink between them. For the first time, he felt seen, not as the small-town boy who'd fled Ridge Valley after his father's homophobic rant shattered their Thanksgiving dinner, but as the man who burned with a fire that could rival any king. But desire is a serpent's whisper, and danger followed close behind. The Coil wasn't just a club. It was a syndicate, laundering art and information through Seattle's galleries to fund queer youth shelters in the shadows of the city's gentrifying sprawl. Wyatt ruled it with an iron fist wrapped in velvet, but rivals lurked, foremost among them, Harlan Voss, a venomous upstart from Portland with a grudge as old as their shared foster home days in Texas. Harlan's eyes, cold as river stones, had always coveted Wyatt's throne, and now, with Finn as the new Omega, he saw leverage. Weeks melted into a haze of stolen afternoons in Wyatt's studio, where canvases dripped with abstract serpents in crimson and indigo, mirroring the bruises of passion blooming on Finn's skin. Wyatt taught him the Coil's lore, the Omega's role as the heart, the binder of alphas through empathy and intuition, a counterbalance to their ruthless drive. "You feel what we can't?" Wyatt said one evening, as they lay tangled on a bearskin rug before a crackling fireplace, the rain pattering against floor-to-ceiling windows like impatient fingers. Finn traced the serpent tattoo with his fingertip, feeling the raised scar beneath. Wyatt's reminder of a knife fight in a New Orleans alley that had nearly claimed him at 20. "That's why I need you, to keep the darkness from swallowing us whole." Finn believed him, lost in the romance of it all. The way Wyatt's gaze softened when Finn hummed old folk tunes from his mother's vinyl collection, or how he'd surprise him with wild blackberry pie from a Pike Place baker, tart and sweet like their stolen kisses. But cracks formed early. Late-night calls pulled Wyatt away, his voice sharpening into commands Finn pretended not to hear. And then came the first warning. An anonymous text to Finn's phone, a grainy photo of him leaving Wyatt's loft, captioned with a single word, "Pray." He showed it to Wyatt over coffee at a harborfront diner, the scent of fresh-brewed beans mingling with the brine of the Sound. Wyatt's face darkened, his fork pausing midair over Eggs Benedict. "Harlan," he muttered, crumpling the napkin in his fist. "He's circling. Stay close to me, Finn. The Coil protects its own." But protection felt like a cage when Wyatt's absences stretched into days, leaving Finn to wander the fog-choked streets alone, his mind replaying the alley punch that had introduced them. Was it Harlan's man? Or something deeper? A fracture in Wyatt's empire? As autumn deepened, turning Seattle's leaves to fire, Finn delved deeper into the Coil's heart. Elias took him under his wing, sharing stories of lost loves in the pre-PREP era, his voice cracking over glasses of bourbon as he sketched Finn's portrait, hazel eyes wide with wonder, lips curved in tentative hope. Cole, ever the pragmatist, showed him encrypted ledgers on his laptop, the digital veins pulsing with funds rerouted to safe houses in rural Maine outposts. Finn felt the pull, the purpose. He was weaving himself into this tapestry of resilience, his Omega intuition sensing the threads fraying around Wyatt's edges. Yet desire demanded its toll. Their nights were fevered dreams of skin and size, Wyatt's body a landscape of muscle and mystery, his growls vibrating through Finn like bass notes in a dimly lit club. "Tell me your secrets," Finn whispered once, straddling Wyatt's hips in the moonlight filtering through rain-streaked glass. His hands splayed across the alpha's chest. Wyatt's eyes, stormy green, held his for a beat too long before he flipped them, caging Finn beneath him. "Some secrets are serpents best left coiled," he replied, sealing the words with a kiss that bruised and healed in equal measure. But Finn harbored his own serpent, one that writhed in the quiet hours. Back in Ridge Valley, before the escape to Seattle's anonymity, he'd buried a journal entry confessing a betrayal. Sleeping with his best friend's boyfriend in a haze of college party desperation, the guilt festering like an untreated wound. It was the kind of secret that could unravel trusts. And as he lay in Wyatt's arms, Finn wondered if his past would poison their present. Little did he know the real venom brewed elsewhere. Harlan's plan to expose a coil embezzlement, framing Wyatt and dangling Finn as the bait. The first real fracture came on a crisp October evening at a coil gathering in an abandoned warehouse near the waterfront. Transformed into a labyrinth of silk-draped installations and throbbing bass from hidden speakers. Finn arrived late, his breath catching at the sight of Wyatt holding court amid a circle of alphas, his laugh booming like thunder over the Salish Sea. But as Finn approached, a hand clamped his shoulder, coal face ashen. "Harlan's inside. He's got dirt. On you." The words landed like ice water. Finn's pulse thundered as he scanned the crowd, spotting Harlan's lean frame slinking through the shadows, his smile a razor glint. Before he could react, Wyatt pulled him into a dance, bodies swaying to a slow, sultry rhythm that masked the undercurrent of dread. "I love you," Wyatt murmured into Finn's ear, the words raw and unbidden, slicing through the noise like a lifeline. Finn's heart seized. Love? In this den of serpents? He clung tighter, inhaling Wyatt's scent. But the moment shattered when Harlan's voice cut in from the periphery. "Careful, King. Your Omega's got a history of biting the hand that feeds." The warehouse spun into chaos after that. Accusations flew like daggers, alphas squaring off under the industrial lights, fists clenched and eyes blazing. Finn stood frozen, the weight of his buried secret crashing down. Had Harlan dug it up? Wyatt's gaze locked on him, not with anger, but a flicker of doubt that pierced deeper than any blade. "What does he mean, Finn?" Wyatt demanded later, in the loft's sterile quiet, the city a glittering accusation beyond the windows. It's nothing," Finn stammered, but the lie tasted like ash. He confessed then, the words tumbling out in a torrent. The college betrayal, the guilt that had chased him to Seattle, the fear it made him unworthy of the coil's fragile trust. Wyatt listened, his face a mask of stone, until he crossed the room in 2 strides and cupped Finn's face, thumbs brushing away tears Finn hadn't realized were falling. "We all carry serpents. Love. It's what we do with them that matters." They made love that night with a desperation born of fracture. Slow, deliberate, Wyatt's hands worshipping every inch as if to imprint forgiveness on Finn's skin. But dawn brought no absolution. Only a note slipped under the door, Harlan's scrawl. "The secret dies with you, or the king falls." Wyatt's resolve hardened like Seattle steel after the note. His days a whirlwind of shadowed meetings and encrypted calls that left Finn adrift in the loft's echoing vastness. The Pacific Northwest winter crept in early that year, blanketing the city in a perpetual gray that mirrored the ache settling in Finn's chest. He spent hours at the window, tracing patterns in the condensation, serpents inevitably, while replaying Wyatt's confession of love like a worn cassette tape. Love. The word felt foreign, a relic from the rom-coms his mom used to watch in their Ridge Valley trailer, back when her laughter still filled the air before the cancer stole it, leaving Finn to navigate his father's cold silences alone. To anchor himself, Finn threw himself into the coil's undercurrents. Elias invited him to his queen and studio, a sunlit airy cluttered with half-finished oils and the ghosts of muses past. There, amid the turpentine haze, Elias taught him to paint. Not the precise lines of his sketches, but the wild abandon of emotion poured onto canvas. "Feel it, Finn?" Elias urged, his gnarled hands guiding Finn's brush across a swirl of midnight blues and fevered reds. The Omega's gift isn't submission. It's the fury that binds us. As the brush danced, Finn poured out his fears. The alley attack, Harlan's threats, the gnawing doubt that his secret made him a liability. Elias listened, his silver brows furrowing, then pulled Finn into a paternal embrace that smelled of linseed oil and old leather. "Wyatt's seen worse storms than you, boy. But love in our world? It's a serpent with two heads. One bites, the other heals." Cole's lessons were sharper, held in dimly lit coffee shops off the beaten path in Fremont, where trolls loomed in sculptures and the air hummed with indie rock from passing cars. Over steaming lattes, Cole decoded the coil's digital fortress, his fingers flying across keys to reveal layers of protection. Blockchain ledgers masking donations to Haven Point's Queer Youth Center, backchannels funneling resources to anti-gentrification fights in the Central District. "Harlan's hacking attempts are amateur," Cole scoffed, but his eyes betrayed worry. "He's got an insider, Finn. Someone close." The implication hung heavy, betrayal within the ranks. Finn's mind raced to the gathering. Had it been one of the alphas, eyes averted in the melee? Or worse, someone Wyatt trusted implicitly? Nights with Wyatt became sanctuaries amid the storm. They'd escape to the San Juan Islands on impulsive drives, the ferry slicing through slate-gray waters under skies threatening snow. In a cedar cabin on Orcas, far from Seattle's serpentine intrigues, they'd shed their skins. Wyatt chopping wood with axe swings that echoed his pent-up rage, Finn gathering driftwood for fires that crackled with stories. One evening, as flames danced shadows across their faces, Wyatt opened up for the first time about his Texas roots. A boy named Wyatt Kane, orphaned young, bouncing through foster homes where alphas like Harlan preyed on the vulnerable. "I built the coil to protect what I lost," he admitted, voice rough as the wool blanket draped over their knees. "But you're the first thing I've wanted to keep." Finn's response was a kiss that tasted of salt and pine, pulling Wyatt down to the rug before the hearth. Their lovemaking was unhurried, exploratory. Wyatt's lips charting the freckles across Finn's shoulders like constellations, his hands coaxing moans that blended with the wind's howl outside. Finn reveled in the alpha's vulnerability, the way Wyatt's breath hitched when Finn's fingers tangled in his hair, urging him deeper. "You're my Omega," Wyatt whispered afterward, tracing lazy circles on Finn's back. "My balance." In those moments, the world narrowed to the press of skin, the shared rhythm of hearts, and Finn dared to dream of a future unbound by secrets. But dreams fracture under pressure. Harlan struck next with surgical precision. It began with a gallery opening in Pioneer Square, the coil's latest front for laundering legitimacy through Elias's exhibit, serpentine abstracts that whispered of cycles unbroken. Finn arrived on Wyatt's arm, his tailored shirt, black silk, a gift from the Alpha, clinging to his frame like a second skin. The crowd buzzed with Seattle's elite. Tech bros in slim-fit jeans, artists with asymmetrical hair, queer icons sipping champagne under exposed beams. Wyatt navigated it like a king, his hand possessive at Finn's waist, but tension coiled in his posture, eyes scanning for threats. Back at the loft, the drive revealed horror. Doctored ledgers pinning the embezzlement on Wyatt, funds siphoned to phantom accounts, traced, damningly, to Finn's Old Ridge Valley Bank. "It's fabricated," Finn protested, stomach churning as Wyatt's face paled. "Harlan must have. Or you did." Wyatt cut in, voice lethally soft, the doubt from the warehouse blooming into something uglier. He paced the room, Serpent tattoo flexing like a living thing. "Tell me the truth, Finn. All of it." The accusation hung, a guillotine blade. Finn's confession spilled again, augmented by tears. The college slip? Yes, but also the desperate wire transfer from his inheritance after his mom's death. a foolish bid to fund his escape that Harlan could have twisted. Wyatt stopped pacing, pulling Finn close, but the embrace felt tentative, laced with the poison of suspicion. "I believe you," he murmured, though his eyes searched Finn's face for lies. "But the coil can't afford weakness now." The betrayal deepened days later, shattering the fragile truce. Cole called in a panic. The insider was revealed as Levi Grant, a mid-level alpha in the coil's logistics, Wyatt's foster brother from those Texas nights. Levi had sold out to Harlan for a cut of the empire, feeding intel on the ledgers and Finn's vulnerabilities. The confrontation unfolded in a derelict shipyard on the Duwamish, rain lashing like whips as Wyatt faced Levi under sodium lights buzzing like angry hornets. Finn watched from the shadows, heart in his throat, as words escalated to blows, Wyatt's fist connecting with Levi's jaw in a crack that echoed over the water. "You're blind, brother," Levi spat, blood mixing with rain on his chin. "That Omega's your downfall. He's got his own serpents. Ask him about the boy he wrecked back home." The lie twisted Finn's past into a weapon, but Wyatt hesitated, glancing back at Finn with eyes fractured by pain. In that pause, Levi lunged, a switchblade flashing. Finn moved without thought, shoving Wyatt aside. The blade grazed his arm instead, a hot line of fire that bloomed red across his sleeve. Chaos erupted. Coil reinforcements swarmed, subduing Levi as sirens wailed in the distance. Wyatt cradled Finn against the cold metal of a shipping container, his hands trembling as he tore fabric to staunch the wound. "Why?" Wyatt choked, green eyes wild with a mix of fury and fear. "You couldn't lose you," Finn gasped, the pain sharpening his clarity. "Not to him. Not to anyone." Wyatt's kiss was fierce, tasting of blood and rain, a seal against the encroaching dark. But as medics arrived, coil-affiliated, discreet, the cost mounted. Harlan had vanished. The flash drive's data leaked to authorities, painting Wyatt as a kingpin in a fabricated fraud. The empire teetered, alphas fracturing into factions, whispers of disbandment slithering through the ranks. In the sterile glow of a private clinic overlooking Lake Union, stitches fresh and arm bandaged, Finn confronted the serpent within. "My secret. It's killing us," he told Wyatt, who sat vigil in a vinyl chair, exhaustion etching lines around his eyes. Wyatt took Finn's hand, calluses rough against the tape. "No. Harlan's the poison. Yours? That's just human." They talked then, truly, Wyatt admitting his own buried shame. The foster home abuse that forged his alpha armor, the coil's origins in a desperate pact to protect runaways like they'd once been. Vulnerability bridged them, turning desire into something deeper, a romance tempered by fire. Yet danger coiled tighter. Harlan's final play loomed. A midnight meet at the Old Ridge Valley Mill, Finn's hometown haunting like a ghost. "He wants me," Finn realized, piecing the texts, "to draw you out." Wyatt's jaw set, but his grip on Finn tightened. "Then we end it. Together." As Winter's grip clenched, Finn felt the Omega's true power stir. Not surrender, but the fierce empathy that could redeem or destroy. The road to Ridge Valley stretched ahead, fog-shrouded and fraught, promising confrontation where past and present collided like tectonic plates. The drive to Ridge Valley unfolded like a memory reel unspooling in reverse, the interstate a blurred ribbon of evergreens and sodium-lit rest stops under a moonless sky. Finn gripped the wheel of Wyatt's battered black Jeep, his bandaged arm throbbing in time with the wiper's rhythmic swipe against the relentless drizzle. Wyatt sat shotgun, silent sentinel, his profile etched sharp against the passenger window. Jaw clenched, eyes distant as the Cascades gave way to the familiar flats of eastern Washington. Finn stole glances, heart aching at the vulnerability cracking Wyatt's armor. The alpha who commanded empires now looked like a man adrift, haunted by the brotherly betrayal that had sliced deeper than Levi's blade. They'd left Seattle at dusk, after a tense coil council where Elias and Cole rallied the loyalists, vowing to contain the leak. "Harlan's desperate," Elias had growled, pounding a fist on the warehouse table. Ridge valleys his trap, your roots, Finn. He'll use them to gut Wyatt. Cole nodded, screens flickering with traced signals pinpointing Harlan's hideout in the abandoned mill, a skeletal relic from the town's logging heyday. Finn's stomach had twisted at the mention. Ridge Valley, where maple-lined streets hid shotgun shacks and the high school football field still echoed with his father's slurred cheers, before the beer-fueled rage that drove Finn away at 18. Returning felt like tempting fate, unearthing the grave of his old self. Wyatt broke the silence near midnight as they crossed the state line, his hand finding Finn's knee in a gesture both possessive and pleading. "Talk to me," he said, voice low over the engine's hum. "About this place. About the boy who ran." Finn exhaled, the words bubbling up like pressure from a fault line. He spoke of lazy summers fishing in Maple Creek, the creek's waters cool and forgiving against boyhood scrapes. Of his mother's gentle hands braiding wildflowers into his hair, calling him her little dreamer, even as his father sneered at the sketchbooks filled with male figures that stirred confusing fires. Coming out. It was like admitting I was the serpent in the garden. Finn confessed, eyes on the road. "Dad found the journal. Called me everything but his son. Mom died soon after, cancer, quick and cruel. I left with nothing but a duffel and that tattoo, inking my shame into something sacred." Wyatt's thumb traced circles on Finn's thigh, a silent anchor. "Shame's Harlan's weapon, not yours. You survived it. That's your crown." He shared fragments of his own unraveling. The Texas nights evading Harlan's fists in foster bunks, the pact with Levi to escape that soured into rivalry. "I thought the coil would heal us. Instead, it just coiled tighter." Their hands intertwined, the touch electric, a reminder that amid the danger, desire still simmered, a quiet promise of bodies entwined once the storm broke. Ridge Valley greeted them like a faded photograph, the welcome sign weathered and peeling under sodium lamps. Main Street slumbered, mom and pop diners shuddered, the air crisp with pine and the faint rot of mill decay. They holed up in a roadside motel on the outskirts, neon vacancy sign buzzing like a trapped fly. The room smelled of mothballs and regret, but in the queen bed's sagging embrace, they reclaimed each other. Wyatt's kisses were urgent, mapping Finn's body with renewed hunger, lips trailing fire down his neck, teeth grazing the collarbone tattoo until Finn arched, gasping Wyatt's name like a prayer. "Need you?" Wyatt murmured, hands roaming with alpha command, yet yielding to Finn's omega pull, letting him set the pace. They moved together in the dim lamplight, slow and deep, the creak of springs underscoring moans that built to a crescendo, release crashing over them like waves on Orcas shores. Afterward, curled against Wyatt's chest, Finn traced the serpent ink, feeling its pulse sync with his own. "Whatever Harlan throws," Wyatt whispered, "we face it as one." Dawn brought the mill, a hulking skeleton on the river's bend, rusted girders clawing at the overcast sky. Harlan's text had been precise. "Noon. Come alone, Omega, or the king's ledgers go public." But Wyatt refused solitude, arms slung protectively around Finn as they approached on foot through knee-high ferns slick with dew. The air hummed with tension, birdsong silenced as if the forest held its breath. Inside, the mill's vast nave echoed with drips from fractured roofs, shafts of gray light piercing the gloom like accusatory fingers. Harlan waited on a catwalk overhead, silhouette predatory against the rust-flecked beams, flanked by two burly enforcers. X-Coil rejects, their faces twisted in mercenary grins. "Welcome home, Finn," Harlan called down, voice echoing like a bad dream. "Brought your king to slaughter?" He descended slowly, boots clanging on metal stairs, his eyes, pale blue, devoid of warmth, fixing on Finn with a hunger that chilled deeper than the damp. Up close, Harlan was unremarkable. Mid-30s, lean as a whip, blonde hair slicked back, but his presence oozed the rot of resentment, a serpent molting into something venomous. Wyatt stepped forward, body coiled like his tattoo. "This ends now, Harlan. The coil's mine. Walk away." But Harlan laughed, a hollow bark, tossing a folder at their feet. Printouts of Finn's past, twisted into forgeries. Emails implicating him in the embezzlement. Photos from Ridge Valley doctored to show Finn in compromising deals. Your Omega's the key, Wyatt. Broke his best friend's trust once. Why not yours? I just gave him the nudge. Finn's blood ran cold, the old guilt surging like bile. Lies, he snarled, voice cracking but defiant. You forged it all. Harlan's smile widened, predatory. Doesn't matter. The cops are en route. Anonymous tip. Your king's done, and you'll beg to be my Omega when the dust settles. The fight ignited in a blur. Wyatt lunged, fist connecting with Harlan's gut in a hoof of expelled air. But the enforcers swarmed, fists and boots raining down. Finn dodged a haymaker, adrenaline sharpening his senses. The Omega's intuition flaring, spotting a loose pipe on the floor. He swung it like a bat, cracking one enforcer's knee with a sickening crunch, buying Wyatt space to grapple Harlan. Punches flew, grunts echoing in the cavernous space, blood slicking the concrete. Wyatt pinned Harlan against a beam, forearm to throat. Why? Wyatt roared, green eyes blazing. We were brothers. Harlan choked out a laugh, face purpling. You left me behind, King. Took the coil, the power. Now I take your heart. His hand darted to his boot, a hidden derringer glinting. Time slowed. Finn saw it first, screaming Wyatt's name as the shot cracked, the bullet grazing Wyatt's shoulder in a spray of red. Wyatt staggered but held, wrenching the gun away and slamming Harlan's head against the metal with a finality that reverberated. The enforcers fled into the underbrush as sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Finn rushed to Wyatt, tearing his shirt to press against the wound, tears blurring his vision. Stay with me, he begged, voice raw. Wyatt's hand cupped his cheek, thumb smearing blood and dirt. Always, Omega. You're my redemption. Paramedics arrived in a frenzy, coil strings pulled for discretion, whisking Wyatt to a Tri-Cities hospital while Finn followed in the jeep, mind a whirlwind of what-ifs. Harlan was cuffed, his empire of lies crumbling under Cole's remote hacks exposing the forgeries. But victory tasted like ash. Wyatt flatlined twice in surgery, the bullet nicking an artery, his alpha strength no match for mortality's bite. Vigil in the ICU, Finn held Wyatt's hand through the night, machines beeping a mechanical lullaby. Dawn broke with Wyatt's eyes fluttering open, weak but alive, squeezing Finn's fingers. Secret safe, he rasped, managing a ghost of his smile. We survived the Serpent. Recovery stretched into weeks, Wyatt's shoulder in a sling as they retreated to the Orcus cabin, the coil stabilizing under Elias's interim reign. Finn nursed him with tender ferocity. Bandage changes by firelight, walks along pebble beaches where they collected sea glass like talismans. Desire reignited slowly, a gentle burn. Shared baths steaming with eucalyptus, Wyatt's good arm pulling Finn close, their kisses deepening into explorations that healed more than flesh. I love you, Finn said one twilight, as they watched fairies slice the sound. Not despite the secrets, because of them. Wyatt's response was a vow, sealed in the salt air. Then let's uncoil them all, together. But shadows lingered, Levi's trial looming, Harlan's venomous echoes in anonymous threats. Finn felt the Omega's burden evolve. Not just binding alphas, but forging a legacy of openness, turning pain into purpose. As spring whispered through the islands, green shoots piercing the earth, Finn sketched their future. A coil reborn, transparent, a beacon for the lost. Yet in quiet moments, doubt slithered. Could love truly conquer the Serpent's cycle? The answer unfolded in the days ahead, a romance etched in resilience, where danger yielded to desire's defiant light. Spring's tentative bloom painted Orcus in watercolor strokes, wildflowers nodding along trails, the Salish Sea a mirror of azure skies unbroken by Seattle's perpetual veil. Wyatt's recovery progressed in measured victories. The sling discarded for physical therapy sessions where Finn played reluctant coach, spotting his alpha through grueling reps that left Wyatt cursing in that faint Texas drawl. Easy killer, Finn teased one afternoon in the cabin's sun-dappled clearing, handing Wyatt a towel slick with sweat. Their eyes met, heat flaring in the shared silence, and suddenly they were kissing against the cedar wall, fierce, reclaiming, Wyatt's hands roaming Finn's back with renewed strength, pulling him flush until breaths mingled and the world narrowed to the press of hardening desire. They tumbled inside, shedding clothes like old skins, the rug before the hearth a familiar altar. Wyatt took his time, worshipping Finn with lips and tongue, trailing down his chest, nipping at the Ouroboros tattoo until Finn writhed, fingers fisting dark hair. Mine? Wyatt growled, the alpha's command laced with tenderness, as he entered Finn's slow and deep, their rhythm a symphony of gasps and groans building to shattering release. Afterward, sated and tangled, Wyatt traced Finn's arm scar from the mill fight. Our badges, he murmured. Proof we chose each other over the dark. But the mainland called, Harlan's trial a serpent's tail dragging them back to Seattle's coils. The courthouse in downtown loomed like a monolith of glass and justice, protesters milling outside with signs for queer rights and against corporate greed. Echoes of the coils' shadowed fights now thrust into daylight. Finn testified first, voice steady under fluorescent glare, recounting the forgeries, the alley ambush, the mill showdown. Harlan's eyes bored into him from the defense table, a glare of impotent rage, but Finn met it unflinching, his Omega intuition sensing the fracture. Harlan's empire reduced to whispers, allies scattering like leaves in a gale. Wyatt's turn came harder, shoulders still stiff as he detailed the betrayal, Levi's defection, the foster scars that birthed their rift. The jury absorbed it, faces impassive, but Finn caught the undercurrent. Sympathy for the Serpent King recast as protector, not predator. Outside, media swarmed, local outlets spinning the coil as a queer vigilante network, headlines blurring fact and sensation. Elias fielded calls from the loft, his booming laugh deflecting probes, while Cole fortified digital walls against hacks. We're exposed, Cole warned over a strategy dinner at a Capitol Hill bistro, forks pausing over salmon. But exposure's a blade cuts both ways. Harlan's rotting in county. Levi's plea deal names names. The coil could go legit. The idea ignited debates that stretched into heated nights. Wyatt paced the loft, green eyes stormy. Legit means dilution. We lose the edge that saves lives. Finn countered gently, curled on the couch with a sketchpad, drawing visions of open galleries funding scholarships, safe houses rebranded as community hubs. Edge without heart is just cruelty, Wyatt. We've bled for this. Let it breathe. Their arguments dissolved into passion, words turning to touches. Wyatt pulling Finn onto his lap for debates sealed with kisses that left them breathless, bodies aligning in urgent affirmation. Yet conflict brewed anew, not from enemies without, but the serpent within the ranks. Rumors slithered through the coil. Whispers of dissent, alphas chafing at Wyatt's, Omega-influenced, softening. Old guards like Thorn loyal but wary. It culminated at a summit in the Whispering Viper, the speakeasy's velvet hush amplifying tensions. Finn felt the Omega pull acutely, the room's emotional undercurrents crashing like waves. Loyalty laced with fear, admiration tinged with envy. Wyatt addressed them from the bar's end, voice resonant. We've survived kings and betrayers. Now we evolve or we perish. A voice rose from the shadows. Damon Hale, a burly logistics alpha with a Portland accent and grudge from a botched-op evolve? Your boy's turning us soft. Secrets and scandals. Harlan's laughing from his cell. Murmurs rippled, eyes flicking to Finn, who stood beside Wyatt, chin lifted. The air thickened, accusation hanging like smoke. Wyatt's fist clenched, but Finn stepped forward, heart pounding. Soft? Try human. I've seen Wyatt bleed for you, for us. If that's weakness, then chain me to it. His words, raw with the depth of his Ridge Valley scars, silenced the room. Damon averted his gaze, and slowly, nods circled. Elias clapping Finn's shoulder, Cole raising a glass. The tide turned, not through force, but the Omega's quiet fire. In the afterglow, Wyatt pulled Finn into the back lounge, pressing him against the wall in a kiss that devoured doubts. "You saved us?" Wyatt breathed, hands sliding under Finn's shirt, igniting sparks. They slipped away to the loft under starless skies, the drive a prelude to frenzy. Wyatt's mouth on Finn's neck in the elevator, clothes discarded in a trail to the bed. Lovemaking was a storm. Wyatt dominant yet attuned, reading Finn's every hitch of breath, drawing out pleas until climax shattered them both, leaving Finn boneless, cherished. But romance's bloom hid thorns. Finn's past resurfaced in a letter from Ridge Valley. His father, penitent in shaky script, confessing regret after a stroke left him bedridden. "Come home, son. See the man I failed to be." The words reopened wounds, stirring dreams of reconciliation laced with dread. Wyatt encouraged it, driving them east in a ritual of closure. The trailer park was unchanged. Sagging porches, maple trees shedding crimson confetti. Inside, the old man, thinner, eyes milky, extended a trembling hand. "I was wrong, Finn. About you. About love." Tears fell, words mending what fists had broken. A hug fragile as spun glass. Wyatt waited outside, sentinel in the dusk, his presence a shield. The visit unlocked Finn, vulnerabilities spilling in the return journey. "He saw me," Finn said, head on Wyatt's shoulder as the Jeep hummed westward. "Really saw." Wyatt's response was a pull-off at a scenic overlook, the sound glittering below. They made love in the back seat under twilight's hush, tender, exploratory, Finn atop, setting a rhythm that mirrored their healing. Slow builds to soaring peaks, whispers of forever mingling with cries. Back in Seattle, the Coil transformed under their vision. The Viper rebranded as a queer arts collective, funds flowing openly to Haven Point initiatives. Yet climax loomed in Harlan's appeal, a last venomous strike. Leaked testimony alleged Coil coercion, dragging Wyatt into hearings that tested his resolve. Finn stood by him, testifying again, his voice a beacon of truth amid legal crosswinds. As summer scorched the city, turning Elliott Bay to steam, Finn felt the story's arc bend toward resolution. But secrets, like serpents, shed skins only to grow anew. One final coil tightening around a revelation that could redefine them. A pregnancy test hidden in Finn's drawer, positive in the quiet dawn, the Omega's ultimate binding. How to tell the king? The question hung, pregnant with peril and promise, as desire's fire beckoned them forward. Summer's relentless heat wave baked Seattle into a reluctant furnace, the usual drizzle yielding to skies of unyielding blue that made the city's evergreens droop like weary sentinels. Finn moved through those days in a haze of secrecy, the positive test strip tucked in his sock drawer like a talisman, or a time bomb. At 25, with his lean frame still marked by mill scars and alpha claims, the notion of carrying Wyatt's child felt like a fever dream. Impossible biology twisted into miracle by the Omega's mythic pull, a rare convergence whispered in Coil lore as the Serpent's egg, binding souls eternally. Doctors confirmed it discreetly, hormonal echoes from their intense bond, a pseudoscience the community embraced as destiny. Finn's hand drifted to his still flat abdomen during quiet moments, a mix of terror and tenderness swelling like the tide. Wyatt sensed the shift, his alpha intuition attuned to Finn's every flicker. "What's eating you, love?" he'd ask over breakfasts on the loft's balcony, where the bay's ferries cut white wakes and gulls wheeled in lazy spirals. Finn deflected with smiles, burying the news amid the Coil's rebirth. The collective's first open exhibit at Pioneer Square, canvases of serpentine resilience drawing crowds that spilled onto cobblestones, champagne flutes clinking in toasts to transparency. Elias beamed as patrons whispered appreciations, his own pieces, abstracts of fractured loves mended, selling out. Cole manned a pop-up tech booth, demoing apps for queer safe spaces, his grin triumphant. "From shadows to spotlight," he quipped to Finn, clapping his back. Yet the appeal hearing cast a pall. Harlan's lawyers, slick as oil, painted the coil as a cult, subpoenaing witnesses who spun tales of coercion. Wyatt testified with coiled restraint, shoulder scar a visible badge under his button-down, recounting the Foster betrayals without flinching. Finn watched from the gallery, heart clenching at the micro-expressions. Wyatt's jaw tightening under cross-examination, green eyes flashing defiance. "The coil isn't a syndicate," Wyatt declared, voice steady as granite. "It's a lifeline, for kids like I was like Finn, cast out and clawing for home." The courtroom hushed, the judge's gavel falling later in adjournment like a punctuation on truth. Outside, reporters swarmed, but Wyatt shielded Finn, arm around his waist as they pushed through. In the Jeep's sanctuary, tension uncoiled into urgency. Wyatt pulling into an alley off First Avenue, kissing Finn with a hunger that bordered on desperation. "Need to feel you," he growled, hands urgent under Finn's shirt, fingers teasing nipples to peaks. Finn yielded, Omega fire igniting, straddling Wyatt in the driver's seat for a frantic coupling. Clothes shoved aside, bodies rocking in sync until release shuddered through them, fogging windows with shared breaths. "You're my anchor," Wyatt panted, forehead to Finn's. The words cracked Finn's resolve. Tears pricked as he whispered, "There's more. We made something. A baby." Wyatt froze, eyes widening in a cascade of emotions. Shock yielding to awe, his hand reverent on Finn's belly. "Ours?" he breathed, voice cracking. Finn nodded, the confession a floodgate. Fears of inadequacy, echoes of his father's rejection, the terror of raising a child in Serpent's shadows. Wyatt pulled him close, kisses soft as sea foam. "We'll be better than our ghosts. I swear it." They drove home in stunned silence, hands linked, the future blooming tentative and bright. News rippled through the coil like wildfire, met with jubilation. Elias toasting with vintage scotch, declaring it the Serpent's greatest cycle, life from the coil. Cole programmed a nursery app for tracking, half-joking about blockchain baby monitors. But joy tangled with conflict as Wyatt's old guards resurfaced doubts. Damon Hale cornered Finn at the exhibit's after-party, breath sour with whiskey. "A whelp? With the empire crumbling? You're chaining the king." The words stung, stirring Finn's insecurities. Was he dooming Wyatt to domesticity, diluting the alpha's fire? Wyatt dismissed it fiercely, but tension simmered. Their nights turned introspective. Long talks by the fireplace, Wyatt sharing visions of fatherhood drawn from therapy sessions he'd started post-trial, imagining bedtime stories of resilient serpents, teaching their child the coil's code of compassion. Desire wove through it, evolving. Gentler now, Wyatt's touches mindful of Finn's changing body, lips lingering on the subtle swell, drawing sighs that built to tender climaxes. "Beautiful," Wyatt murmured, entering Finn with deliberate care, their union a promise of legacy. The appeal's climax erupted in a bombshell. Harlan's key witness, a fabricated coil defector, recanted under cross. Cole's hacks uncovering payoffs from Harlan's dwindling funds. The judge dismissed charges with prejudice. Harlan's appeals crushed, his sentence extended for perjury. Cheers erupted in the courthouse, Wyatt lifting Finn in a spinning embrace despite his shoulders twinge. Their kiss a public declaration amid flashing cameras. Freedom's aftertaste was bittersweet. Levi's trial followed, a quieter reckoning in federal court, his plea painting a fuller picture. Years of resentment festering into sabotage, Harlan's manipulation the spark. Wyatt testified not with vengeance, but sorrow. Brothers lost to cycles unbroken. Levi's eyes met his across the room, a flicker of regret before the gavel sealed 20 years. Outside, Wyatt exhaled like a man surfacing from depths. "It's over," he said to Finn, pulling him into a Rainier Beach park, where dogwood blossoms drifted like confetti. They walked hand in hand, the city unfolding benevolent, and Finn felt the baby's flutter. A secret shared, a life uncoiling. Yet internal storms gathered. Finn's pregnancy amplified sensitivities, morning sickness blending with emotional swells. Doubts from Damon's echo lingered, manifesting in nightmares of abandonment. One dawn, as nausea racked him over the loft sink, Wyatt held his hair back, murmuring comforts. "Talk to me," he urged. Finn confessed the fears, becoming a burden, the Omega's role trapping them in domestic stasis. Wyatt knelt, eyes level. "You're not a chain. You're the heart I didn't know I needed. This baby, our rebellion against the dark." To bridge the rift, they journeyed to Maine, Haven Point's coastal haven, a coil outpost of weathered cottages and lobster buoys bobbing in fog. There, amid salt air and lobster bakes with local alphas, they envisioned expansion. A family compound, retreats for queer parents forging futures. Elias joined, sketching plans over chowder, his laughter booming. From serpents to cradles, poetic, lads. Romance deepened in Haven Point's rhythms. Sunset sails where Wyatt steered with one hand, the other on Finn's belly, feeling kicks like Morse code promises. Nights in a lighthouse loft, lovemaking attuned to the sea's crash. Wyatt's body a harbor, Finn's Omega essence drawing him home in waves of pleasure that crested endless. But climax brewed back west. Damon's faction splintered, a midnight confrontation at the Viper demanding Wyatt's abdication for purity. Finn, belly rounding, faced them head-on, voice amplified by hormones and heart. Purity? Try cowardice. The coil thrives on love, not locks. Wyatt backed him, alphas swaying, Damon slinking away defeated. The victory cemented their reign, the collective surging with new blood. Young Omegas inspired, alphas humbled. As autumn tinted leaves gold, Finn's truth crystallized. The secret hadn't killed, it birthed. In a candlelit ceremony at the warehouse, now a community hall, Wyatt vowed eternity. Rings exchanged simple as driftwood bands. Their kiss sealed it, desire's flame eternal, a testament to freedom's cost and compassion's yield. Yet the serpent's whisper persisted. A final letter from Harlan's cell, venom diluted to confession. You won, brother. Raised the air right. Forgiveness flickered, a human grace. Finn, hand in Wyatt's, stepped into the dawn, ready for the life's coil to unfold. Autumn's palette swept Seattle in fiery sweeps, maples igniting Capitol Hill streets, the air crisp with fallen leaves crunching underfoot like whispered secrets. Finn's pregnancy advanced into its second trimester, the swell of his belly a gentle curve beneath loose flannels, each kick a reminder of the life they'd forged from chaos. Wyatt doted with a tenderness that softened his alpha edges. Assembling a crib in the loft's spare room, now painted sage green with serpent motifs in subtle gold leaf. Elias's gift, a mural of cycles renewed. Mornings began with Wyatt's hands splayed protectively over Finn's abdomen, lips brushing the skin in ritual kisses. Our little rebel, he'd murmur, hazel eyes, mirroring Finn's, already imagined in miniature. The coil's evolution accelerated, the collective a phoenix from serpentine ashes. Open forums drew diverse crowds to the Viper's expanded space. Panels on queer parenting, art therapy for trauma survivors, funds ballooning through grants Wyatt navigated with Cole's tech savvy. Elias curated a traveling exhibit, Coils Unbound. Serpents reimagined as bridges, not barriers, touring from Portland to Boston. Finn contributed sketches, his Omega intuition infusing lines with emotional depth. Figures entwined in vulnerability, emerging stronger. Patrons lingered, sharing stories that mirrored his own. Runaways finding family, betrayals transmuted to bonds. Yet the human cost lingered. Levi's incarceration prompted Wyatt's weekly visits to the state pen, not for vengeance, but reclamation. He returned drained, green eyes shadowed, recounting fragments over herbal teas. Levi's apologies mumbled through plexiglass, regrets for the foster years twisted by Harlan's shadow. He was my mirror once, Wyatt confessed one evening, as rain pattered the windows. The dark to my drive. Forgiving him, it's uncoiling the hate. Finn listened, hand in Wyatt's, the baby's somersaults syncing with their shared pulse. Then let it go, Finn said softly. For us, for them. Their lovemaking that night was cathartic. Slow, face-to-face, Wyatt's thrusts measured to Finn's size. Climax a release of held breaths, tears mingling on pillows. Finn's Ridge Valley ghost stirred anew with a call from his father. Progress reports on recovery. Invitations laced with hope. Wyatt encouraged a second visit, driving through November's early dusk, the Jeep's heater blasting against encroaching chill. The trailer felt less haunted this time. Fresh curtains, a puzzle of Puget Sound on the table. The old man rose shakily, embracing Finn with arms that trembled but held. "Proud of you, son," he rasped, eyes lighting on the belly. "Grandkid? Hell, life's got jokes." Laughter bridged the chasm, stories flowing. Of Finn's boyhood pranks, his mother's recipes scribbled in margins. Wyatt joined, his Texas charm disarming, sharing coil tales sanitized for tenderness. Departure left Finn lighter, the serpent of paternal rejection sloughed like old skin. Winter whispered in with solstice lights twinkling along the waterfront, the coil hosting a Yule gala at the warehouse. Now the Ouroboros Hall, twinkling with fairy lights and evergreen boughs. Finn, radiant in a loose sweater that draped his form, mingled with ease, Omega glow drawing admirers who cooed over the bump. Wyatt watched from afar, pride swelling his chest, until a shadow crossed his face. Damon Hale, uninvited, lurking at the bar. The splinter faction hadn't fully dissolved. Whispers of a rival network slithered, Damon's grudge festering into plots for poaching members. Confrontation brewed mid-festivities, Damon pulling Wyatt aside into a side alcove, voice slurred with eggnog venom. "This domestic bliss is neutering you, king. The real coil dies while you play house." Wyatt's response was steel. "The real coil lives because of it. Leave, Damon, or be cast out." Fists clenched, but Finn appeared, hand on Wyatt's arm, his presence a bomb. "We're not playing," Finn said, voice calm but edged. "We're building. Join or fade." Damon sneered but retreated, the encounter a final fracture. His faction crumbling days later, members defecting to the collective's embrace. The new year dawned with intimate promise. A baby moon in New Orleans, Wyatt's buried roots calling. The Crescent City's humid jazz pulse enveloped them. Beignet dust on fingers, Mississippi mud in veins. They wandered the Garden District, hand in hand past wrought iron balconies dripping ferns. Wyatt tracing old scars from his knife fight youth. "Here, I learned to fight dirty," he admitted over café au lait at a Magazine Street bistro. Finn listened, then shared his own evolutions. Prenatal classes blending yoga with coil meditations, journaling dreams of their child's first steps on Orca sands. Nights in a Creole cottage pulsed with sultry heat, Wyatt's hands worshipping Finn's changing body, lips tracing stretch marks like sacred runes, entering him with reverence that built to ecstatic peaks. "Perfect," Wyatt groaned. Their union a dance of give and take. Finn's Omega cries echoing off louvered shutters. Mornings brought beignet in bed, laughter over powdered sugar smudges. Wyatt's head pillowed on Finn's belly to whisper to the life within. Return brought labor's shadow, Braxton Hicks contractions testing resolve, Finn's anxieties peaking in midnight vigils. Wyatt countered with unwavering presence, driving to appointments, rubbing Finn's feet by firelight, their talks delving deeper into fatherhood's fears. Raising a queer child in a world still coiling with judgments, imparting the coil's compassion without its dangers. "We'll teach balance," Wyatt vowed. Strength in softness. Climax arrived in March's equinox gale, winds howling off the sound as contractions gripped true. The loft transformed into birthing sanctum, Elias boiling water like an old-world midwife, coal timing waves on an app. Wyatt held Finn through the storm, sweat-slick hands clasped, green eyes locked in shared agony and awe. "Breathe with me," he coached, voice anchor in the chaos. Hours blurred into eternity, Finn's pushes primal roars, until a cry pierced the din. A son, 7 pounds of wrinkled fury, hazel eyes blinking at the world. They named him Kai, Hawaiian for sea, evoking Orcus waves and endless cycles. Wyatt cradled him first, tears carving tracks down stubbled cheeks, the alpha undone. "Our serpent's gift," he whispered. Finn, exhausted and euphoric, pulled them close, the triad complete. Omega, Alpha, Air. Months unfurled in newborn rhythms, sleepless nights soothed by Kai's milky scent, days of tentative explorations. Wyatt's strong arms rocking colic away, Finn sketching Kai's tiny fists clenched like promises. The coil adapted, a nursery wing added to the hall, mentorships for young parents. Harlan's letter faded to irrelevance, his appeals denied, life affirming its own justice. Yet the story's depth lay in quiet human truths. Wyatt's vulnerability in Kai's first fever, Finn's tears over paternal echoes in lullabies. Romance endured, stolen moments amid feedings. Kisses in kitchen glows, quick couplings in the shower that reaffirmed their fire. One anniversary eve, as cherry blossoms dusted the balcony, Wyatt knelt anew. "Marry me proper, Finn. Let's make the world witness our coil." Tears fell, yes, a breathless vow. The wedding bloomed in summer's peak at Haven Point. Beachside vows under Maine pines, Elias officiating with booming joy, Cole's drones capturing petals in wind, rings exchanged, gold serpents entwined. Their kiss sealed amid cheers, Kai gurgling in a carrier. Years rippled forward in vignettes. Kai's first steps on Orcus pebbles, toddler questions about Daddy's snake tattoo, the coil a global network of havens. Betrayals became lore, cautionary tales yielding to triumphs of identity. Finn and Wyatt, weathered but unbowed, stood as testaments. Love's serpent not devourer, but guardian. In twilight reflections, Finn traced Wyatt's face, hazel meeting green. "We survived the secret." Wyatt smiled, pulling him close. "We became it, free, fierce, forever." Decades wove their subtle threads through the fabric of their lives, turning Seattle's relentless rain into a familiar symphony that lulled Kai to sleep in his cradle, then his bed, and eventually his own apartment across the Sound. Finn, at 55, carried the Omega's grace with silver threading his dark hair, lines etching his hazel eyes like maps of joys and tempests weathered. The loft had evolved into a home of layered memories. Kai's crayon serpents on the fridge giving way to his college acceptance letters, the walls bearing Elias's final canvas. A commission before his passing, depicting their family as intertwined Ouroboroi, eternal and unbroken. Wyatt, 62 now, moved with the deliberate power of a king emeritus, his shoulder scar a faint silver ghost beneath the serpent tattoo that had inspired generations. Retirement from the coil's helm came gracefully, handing reins to a council of young alphas and omegas, Cole's digital legacy ensuring transparency, Kai among the rising voices with his tech art hybrids. Wyatt's days filled with mentorships at Haven Point retreats, where he'd share stories by crackling fires. The mill fight sanitized for youth, Harlan's venom recast as a lesson in resilience. "Betrayal's the serpent's bite," he'd say, voice gravelly with age. "But forgiveness uncoils the soul." Finn's art flourished in tandem, galleries from Ridge Valley to New Orleans showcasing his evolutions. Portraits of queer elders, abstracts of paternal bonds forged in fire. His father's death, peaceful in a nursing home bed, had closed that chapter with a final letter, words of pride clutched in arthritic hands. Finn visited the grave yearly, Kai in tow as a boy, then man, laying wildflowers from Maple Creek. "Grandpa learned late," Kai would say, echoing lessons absorbed. But he learned. Their romance, far from fading, deepened into a quiet inferno. Mornings tangled in sheets worn soft by decades. Wyatt's hands still knowing every curve, every sigh. Intimacy shifted. Slower dances in the kitchen to old jazz vinyls. Wyatt pulling Finn close for waltzes that ended in bedroom murmurs. Bodies aligning with the ease of old lovers. "Still my Omega," Wyatt would growl playfully, lips on Finn's neck, drawing forth gasps that built to climaxes tender and profound. Age-tempered desire, but not its fire. Anniversaries on Orcus beaches saw them renew vows under stars. rings glinting as hands explored with reverent hunger. Kai's life unfolded as their greatest narrative arc. A queer artist-activist, coming out at 16 with Wyatt's steady gaze and Finn's embrace, navigating loves that echoed their own. A partner named Riley, broad-shouldered coder with a poet's heart. Their union a coil wedding blending tech and tradition. Grandchildren arrived in flurries. Twins first, then a singleton. Filling the loft with chaos and laughter. Tiny hands tracing great-grandpa Wyatt's tattoo with wide-eyed wonder. "Does it bite?" they'd ask. Wyatt chuckled. "Only the bad dreams away." Conflicts arose as life demanded. Kai's activist clashes with conservative councils, echoing Wyatt's old boardroom battles. Finn's health scare, a benign tumor excised with coil-funded care, testing their vows anew. Through it, they leaned. Wyatt's vigil in hospital rooms, Finn's recovery walks hand-in-hand along Elliott Bay, where ferries still sliced the water like time's indifferent blades. Harlan's end came quietly, a obituary clipping from a Portland pen. Natural causes, unrepentant to the last. Wyatt read it aloud over coffee, voice neutral. He coiled alone. No malice lingered. The Serpent's cycle broken in their lineage. Legacy crystallized in the Coil Centennial, Ouroboros Hall a beacon, global chapters honoring founders with plaques. Wyatt Kane and Finn Harlow. From shadows to dawn. The gala swirled with faces old and new. Kai emceeing with Riley at his side. Toasts raising to compassion's triumph. Finn and Wyatt danced center floor. Bodies swaying in sync. Hazel and Green locked in timeless gaze. Later, on the balcony under autumn's harvest moon, Kai joined them. Now a father himself, lines of wisdom mirroring theirs. "You built this," he said, gesturing to the city lights. "From danger to us." Hugs exchanged, tears unspoken. The triad expanded to generations. In quiet eves, Finn reflected. The alley punch, the Omega's surrender, the secret that birthed empire and family. It hadn't killed. It liberated, whispering truths of identity's freedom, love's truest rebellion. Wyatt pulled him inside, to bed where sheets welcomed like old friends. "Forever," Wyatt murmured, hand over heart. "Coiled eternal," Finn replied, sealing it with a kiss. As snow dusted the sound, their story settled. Not end, but ellipsis. Lives rippling outward, serpents guardians of the heart's wild, human dance.